Tell us why this is such an important and unique art exhibit to go see in Southern California.
Yeah, so I know that there have been shows elsewhere in the world before that cystic fibrosis artists have been in, but in terms of a gallery in LA, I would not know of one. I know that there have been cystic fibrosis artists in shows, but all that to say, it's the first of its kind that I know of, to collect 18 artists who are CF fighters that create lived experience, work around their lived experience from around the world in this show. So to say that it's unique would be an understatement. I think it's uh, a really good look globally at contending through a chronic illness like CF. And specifically at a moment where we have gone, in my lifetime from average lifespan of 14 to average lifespan of late 50s. So people are starting to not only survive, but have to ask questions about significance and purpose and, what will they do with their life now that they have it? And so this exhibition is kind of a testament to that, a testament to possibility in life. Um, and of course, I would hope all of that be an inspiration to other rare disease communities and chronic illness sufferers, and also just people, like people in general who are in any way wrestling with hope and looking for possibility beyond what they could imagine in their minds.
Hi, my name's Dominic Quagliozzi. I'm a visual artist.
Hi, I'm Dylan Mortimer. I am an artist that was born with cystic fibrosis, and I make artwork about the lived experience. I would love to have you come look at my journey at DNJ Gallery, along with 17 other artists from around the world who create artwork of their lived experience with cystic fibrosis, and create work contending with that. We would love to see you anytime up to June 22nd. Our closing is on June 22nd from 12 to 4. Would love to see you at this exhibition. And if you'd like to learn more, please listen to this conversation.
Tell us about your art pieces in the new art exhibit, Breathtaking.
Yeah, I have two works in Breathtaking. I have Donor Recipient, which is a fabric work from 2023. And that is kind of just visually describing it. It's a wall hanging made out of sewn hospital gowns. One of them is painted and then drawn on with graphite. So it's painted red and then with a lot of mark making graphite. And then it's sewn and cut to look like a torso. And then the lung area, I basically cut out and then filled that in with two deflated balloons that just hang there. And then it's framed by sewing hospital gowns around the torso. So it's kind of like a hanging rectangle with a floating red torso and two balloons where the lungs are. That was a work that I was thinking about my experience with transplantation and the kind of anonymity of my donor and the breathlessness of being having lung failure and chronic lung failure and then acute lung failure later as I approached actually getting my transplant. And like this ability to blow up a balloon and balloons kind of signifying like especially a blue balloon, we as a American society, celebrate the birth of a boy with a blue balloon, or a birthday you have balloons. And so like the celebratory nature of what a balloon can signify, but also they're hung upside down and shriveled and deflated. So it's like this almost like letting the air out of this celebration. And that's kind of my experience with transplantation. There was a lot of pomp and circumstance. There was a lot of high energy emotional content with my transplant. I was the subject of a lot of like, hey, we're thinking about you, we're sending prayers, we're sending love, we're wishing and hoping and praying you get your new lungs. So I was the object of a lot of attention from for almost 3 years, for over 3 years. That's how long I was on the waiting list for transplant. People I went to school with, like when I was, 5 years old, found me on Facebook and was like, I heard you're dying and you need new lungs, right? Like, so all these people I ever met in my life were like reaching out. So it was like this really high vibration of attention and care. And but it was always like this dark underside of that. Like, am I going to survive this? Is my life like some kind of inspiration for other people? Like this kind of story about what trying to get a life-saving transplant is. And so that kind of deflation of the lung, of the balloons and stuff, kind of talked towards that. And then again, like the hospital gowns, the anonymity of patient after patient wearing those in the hospital. And so like the construction of this work using the gowns and the torso being, both me embodied as a recipient and the lungs coming from an anonymous person's torso. So it's like, and then the patchwork of sewing them all together, kind of quilt-like, recycled material, and reuse and recycle the hospital gowns, the painting scraps and stuff like that. So it was kind of like a culmination of that experience. And then the other piece is called 65 Roses, a nod to like the charitable story of that the boy who hears his mom talking on the phone with his doctor, and he says, I heard you said I have 65 roses. What does that mean? And she said, no, you have cystic fibrosis. Like that kind of, is that a real story? Is that CF folklore? Like I really love that. Like I feel like it is a real story, that, there's source material out there that can confirm that. But to me, it's always been part folklore, right? So when we had the opportunity to do this show of cystic fibrosis artists, I wanted to make a new work for that. So I made the 65 Roses, which is literally 65 roses in a vase. And the vase is made out of moving blankets. And the roses are made by coloring hospital gowns with red colored pencils. And then I rolled them and folded them into roses and then sewed them on. So it's like a big bouquet of 65 roses. And then the moving blanket comes in. It's kind of another material, textile fabric that kind of talks about these transitional states of high emotional labor and physical labor, where you're going to move, right? So you have all these memories from the past, and you have this intense physical labor in the moment. You may call on friends to help you move. You may call a moving company. And then the anxiety and also hope of the future. You're going to move somewhere, and there's excitement, but also that kind of bittersweetness of leaving the past and present into the unknown of the future. So to me, the moving blanket represents all of those things, as does the hospital gowns, right? And so tying those together, it's like this experience of cystic fibrosis, like living through transition and turmoil and on and off debility and disability and labor and struggle and things like that. And, reliance on your community, your family, your caretakers, the interdependence of that, but also, that hope for independence and stuff like that. Yeah. So that's kind of what those two works represent.
So as you come in the space of the gallery, the first piece is why doesn't the bush burn up? And is a bronchial tree formation that some people read visually as bronchial branches. I mean, it looks like a tree or tree branches, but it could be veins or arteries. It could be, different systems of the body. and then kind of composed of different circles. It's basically circles of glitter with paint, kind of squeeze bottle application surrounding all these circles of glitter to create this effect. So the circles kind of loosely represent the idea of cells. So again, this collision of bronchial tree and cells. Again, these two things that have I've looked at visually in so many different ways, and it is either not gone well or gone really well post-transplant. And look, the scans look good, the numbers look good. Oh, they don't look good again. They, everything's going good again too. Everything is looking good again. Everything is going well. So, back to the spiritual references, kind of referencing the burning bush of Moses in the wilderness. Why doesn't that why isn't it burning up? There's all forecasted throughout my life was that I would have the average lifespan of CF was 14 years when I was born, and I'm 44 now. So to the question of why doesn't the bush burn up? Like how do I keep surviving? How is it that I'm alive despite all this fire, around me? So that's that piece. The next piece over is we can only receive what we have been given, and is a fusion. This is kind of what I've been doing a lot since we recently moved to California about 2 years ago, creating these paintings that are a fusion of medical equipment. So in this piece, it's dangling cords and medical wires and IV bags and IV poles kind of in the background, overlapped by flora and fauna, exotic plant life, that I see more in the Southern California area, and also just thinking of like a tropical paradise, and again, smashing those two realities together. So one of the earlier versions of that, I did like these surgery scenes in this like jungle of lush exotic plant life. And so again, speaking to the feeling of that fine line of like, these are traumatic, terrible events, and yet they're in this sort of paradise, in this joy, and so both of those are happening simultaneously. The third piece in the gallery is self-portrait with an IV pole, which is like a portrait of me in a hospital gown with my face kind of completely covered by bags from the IV pole that I'm holding. Which and there is some of that plant life that I just spoke of mixed in with that as well, with that piece. But that piece in its essence is kind of about a portrait of myself rendered by the literal overwhelming of medicine and carrying the weight of all these IV bags, all this medication, such to the degree that you cannot see my face behind it. And so as I've mentioned earlier, about speaking to the beauty of like how all this equipment has helped and saved me, how it has also simultaneously felt overwhelming and crushing, that it's overtaken me almost, and yet I live on. So that's piece. And then two smaller pieces. One is a tree trunk, which is really kind of thinking about my donor and my bronchial tree both through the process of transplant. Both transplants are cut at the trunk of the tree to replace the bronchial tree. And so for a time, at least, my donors bronchial tree and mine cut the sort of branch of the the trunk of the bronchial tree remaining. And so that piece is kind of thinking about that. It's called the taking tree. And so it really kind of has to deal with the weight of kind of survivor's guilt, and, the unfairness of how is it that I'm alive, but my donor is not. And the weight, just kind of the weight of that. And then another piece is a Air Jordan Nike sneaker that is a symbol I will use often, because there's air inside the shoes, akin to air being inside the lungs, and the shoes sort of have a shape similar to lungs itself. And so all these parallels, as anyone would look at a shoe like that for athletics or fashion, I'm adding the component of air that is in the shoes as a life source. So looking to that symbol of that shoe, like coveting those shoes like you would for athletics or fashion. Here I'm coveting like literal breath and life. And so that's what those symbols are about. So that's what's in the show.
Yeah, I think Dylan and I both talked about this a lot. We wanted the visitors, the viewers, to come into the show and just see the breadth of talent and creativity that each individual and as a collective, the cystic fibrosis artist community, they have, right? So we wanted everyone to kind of put work in the show that highlighted their own personal practices, that represented their own personal lived experience with CF. So I think we were really specifically focused on making sure the art represented the best in what each artist offered. So there's amazing video documentary from Max McGuire, a filmmaker from Canada. There's amazing illustrations from Eliza. She's from Spain, where she's like best friends with a mucus blob that takes on a personification and follows her everywhere on a mini bike, swimming, running through a field at school, right? And that's like very specific to her because she made the art, but also like a universal thing within CF, right? The experience of coughing up these phlegm balls, and you have a relationship with your own mucus, right? It's like you can tell how sick you are by the color of the mucus. Like, oh, like it's a dark green week, I got to call the doctor. Or if it's yellow, you're like, okay, I'm still good, right? So like I think each artist, even we did a historical reach back, and we included some work by Bob Flanagan, a poem and a photograph from his show Visiting Hours at the New Museum, where he's in a wheelchair with Cherie Rose and he's on oxygen. And it's like these personalized experiences from each artist, but there is some universal truths within the CF community in a lot of the work. So we thought that was really important to do that. And we picked work that was already existing from each person's practice.
Would you say in some interesting way it shows the full and many aspects of dealing with cystic fibrosis, just walking around the gallery?
Yeah, I think it's a really good survey, I'd say, of what it can be like living with CF. Especially most of the artists are, which is interestingly enough, like I think Rowan's probably in her early 20s, but like 20s to 45, right? So that's like a 20-year period. And we're kind of like the last generation of CF people that are not, or that grew up without the modulators like Trikafta from Vertex, right? So that was an interesting overview of kind of what it's been like to grow up dealing with the struggles of CF and a body in revolt a lot, right? So you have a lot of the medical equipment in there. You have a lot of the mucus and dark humor, and there's it all looks really good too, which I think is really exciting. So you want to look at it. It's not anything that's like overly like, ooh, I can't look at that because it's too gross. So I think the artists, we all do a good job of making the work accessible from those point of view, where you can kind of at least come into the work, and then the themes get a little darker from there. But at least we're giving that kind of entryway. And I think as people with CF, we do that anyways, right? We kind of use the invisibility of CF to function in the world, and then we do all the nasty private stuff in private. And so I think the work reflects that element of living with CF really importantly as well too. And yeah, so I think it does show a lot of the aspects of that, and I think it's a very successful show in that way.
What do you think will surprise the art gallery visitor about the art exhibit Breathtaking?
Yeah, I think even I think everybody, and including even the people that are in the CF community, know the CF community really well, will be surprised by the resolve and fight and, you know, stamina, energy, the will, like the human will to survive and the human will to thrive and the human heart to, you know, in the face of such daunting odds, and in the face of such difficult or really hard path. CF is it's a difficult diagnosis to carry, and so to see such beauty created in spite of that is, even I was surprised. I mean, it's like I've known all these artists, I've known most of the artists, and seen some of the work before, but yeah, sort of surprised by joy to see all that come together in one space was really beautiful.
I think the biggest surprise probably is the humor, like the dark humor that is involved in a lot of the work. I think there's a strong seriousness to a lot of the work, but a lot of it has dark humor in it too. And I think that's a really strong theme across a lot of the work. And the experimentation of all the work too, I think is interesting. There's a lot of different mediums. There's a lot of different use of materials, uh, different presentations of different topics, and yeah. So I think like for me specifically, I can speak from my own experience. A lot of my work is kind of funny and in dark ways, right? Like you wouldn't necessarily think that um, a bouquet of roses would, be made out of hospital gowns, and there the there's some green nitrile gloves that kind of drop down behind the flowers that are there, like the flowers leaves and stuff. But that's kind of a goofy way to make a bouquet of roses, right? And you make them out of these like really serious and heavy materials, and to me that's kind of funny. It's like you're revealing like these little inside jokes, and I think a lot of the other artists do similar things like with that.
Definitely want people to come and check out the gallery all the
Yeah,
time during this event. But
a
talk
good,
about
yeah.
talk about the last day where a lot of the artists are coming
Yeah.
down.
Well, yeah, a good day to check out the exhibition would be to come on the last day on June 22nd from 12 to 4, where we'll have a closing reception for the exhibition, where some of the artists will be there. I mean, I know I will be there, and the last day of the show, and just to, a kind of fun time to see some of the artists, some of the in the show itself.
Hi everyone, I'm Dominic Quagliozzi, a visual artist from Massachusetts. I currently have work on display at DNJ Gallery in Los Angeles with a show called Breathtaking. It's 17 artists with cystic fibrosis, artists selected by myself and Dylan Mortimer. And we hope you come down, check out the show. You get a full experience of what living with cystic fibrosis is like. We have a lot of amazing artists in the show from all around the world, and you can see some beautiful art and talent on display. So I'll see you at the gallery.
So my name is Dylan Mortimer. I have, with 18 other artists, an exhibition at D&J Gallery in Santa Monica. That is one of the first exhibitions ever of all CF artists, 18 CF artists from around the world, and around the country in this exhibition. Is Cystic Fibrosis Awareness Month, and we would love to come celebrate with you, raise awareness with you. 30% of all sales of artwork go to the Cystic Fibrosis Foundation. So we are encouraging everybody to come see the show, see the amazing show, see all these artists have done, and help support, help raise awareness for cystic fibrosis, but for hope itself, and all the research that is happening for this rare disease, and all the long way we have come in moving towards a cure of this disease to have impact not only for cystic fibrosis, but chronic illness itself, research and discovery itself. possibility in art making creation itself. Hope to see you at the gallery.